This is NBK, nothing but Knicks. When Sim passed the assist, you know that it's #1 show that breaks down the game. If you can't play defense, stay out my way. Dribble the ball, come down the lane. 5 seconds on the shot clock, who gon' win us the game? You wanna hear Nick updates and trade rumors? Post-game reviews, this the place to tune in. So tell a friend just to keep the ball moving. Like the page if you feeling the movement. Every game we coming to win. Give us a sub like a player that came off the bench. This is NBK, nothing but Knicks.
Knicks family, what's poppin'? It's your boy, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of news happening with the New York Knicks right now. Got my man Tony Crow in the building. And we're going to chop it up and talk about a lot of these things happening right now, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get busy. Tony, what's popping with you, brother? How you feeling?
What's good, Sim? Happy to be back, man. You know what I mean? Let's break it down. Let's talk about it.
I mean, we might as well get right into it. Let's talk about Mike Brown. He's going to be hired as the New York Knicks head coach. What's your thoughts? That's all right. What's your thoughts?
There's a lot of different directions. As a Knicks fan, you know what I mean? I'm definitely, you know what I mean, clean slate. I'm rooting for him, obviously. The better he does, the better we do, the happier we all are.
Right.
I think he is a good coach. I'm interested. I'm conflicted in some ways, you know what I mean? Because I was a very big Tip supporter, as you know, as you are as well. What are going to be the differences in his philosophy? You know what I mean? But I look at the record, got to win a record. I look at where he's coached before and who he's coached before. He's coached LeBron. You know, that comes with a level of scrutiny, a level of eyes on you, a level of media attention. He's coached in LA with Kobe. That brings that same thing. So I think handling New York in general, I think he'll be okay. So I'm not worried about that. But then you talk about his last coaching stint in Sacramento, where it started off great, you know, coach of the year, top offensive rating team in the NBA that year. And then, you know, it kind of went downhill from there. And the way it ended, you know, that's where it gets a little tricky for me. That's where it gets a little bit surprising in this hire, because it seems like he lost the locker room. You know what I mean? It seemed like he was throwing his star player under the bus publicly. You know what I mean? Those type of things obviously are not going to fly here, and it won't be brushed under the rug like I think it was. It wasn't a big deal in Sacramento. I mean, he lost his job shortly after, but it wasn't really talked about that much. Here, everything's going to be talked about. You know what I mean? On a night-to-night basis. So,
yeah, you know, I'm lukewarm to say the best, at least right now. I'm lukewarm, and it really has nothing to do with Tom Thibodeau. To me, it has everything to do with the way that the front office set it up. Right? They said, we do not believe that Tom Thibodeau can win us a championship, so we're going to hire a coach that's going to win you a championship. To me, Mike Brown is a guy. Mike Brown is a guy who is very similar in resume to Tom Thibodeau, very similar in history to Tom Thibodeau, besides the fact that he's been to the championship with
Cleveland
Cavaliers, right? A lot of people been to the championship with LeBron, and I'm not going to say it's only because of LeBron, but you know, a lot of people been to the championship with LeBron. But he went to the championship. He's got that experience. He went to the championship with the Golden State Warriors. He's got that experience. So in that aspect, as far as being in the spotlight, being to the championship, playing in big markets, playing with high profile players. He's the right guy. I'm going to say that, right? When you look at the people that they interviewed, not the guys that they really wanted to go after, but the people that they interviewed, he's the right guy because he has that type of experience. Similar to Tom Thibodeau, had that type of experience, except he never been to the championship as a head coach, right? So it's, I don't know. Listen, he has a 600 win percentage, a 60% win percentage, right? He knows how to win in the NBA. He's a winning head coach. He is a very good head coach. He's a good head coach. There's no doubt about it in my mind that he's a good head coach. The proof is in the pudding, right? The proof is there. I don't know if it's an upgrade. I'm definitely not gonna say it's a downgrade, but I don't know if it's an upgrade. I think if you're talking about upgrades, where I think the front office is feeling it's going to be an upgrade is maybe with chemistry with the locker room, maybe, and maybe with their collaboration, him doing things the way that they want him to do it. So maybe that is part of the upgrade, if you want to say that he'll be more amenable to what they want. Uh, you know, we'll see. People talk about his ability to use an offense and those things. I'm just worried about results. Whether or not a coach is great at offense or defense, I just want results. You know, so the stakes are high for him, without a doubt. The stakes are high. He's. I'm sorry to anyone that's out there, but Eastern Conference Finals isn't good enough for me. He's got to go to the NBA Finals. I'm not saying next year. I'm not saying next season he's got to go to the NBA Finals. I don't think that's fair because he's got to put his system in and the guy's got to get used to his system. But during his tenure, he needs to go to the NBA Finals. Now, a lot of people is going to look and say next year is Eastern. You got to make the Eastern Conference Finals. A lot of people are going to say that. I'm not. I don't know. I'm not sure. Because you got to put a new system in. He's got new players. You got to figure out how to use those players and all those type of things. But during his tenure, this New York Knicks team has got to go to the NBA Finals.
You're speaking logically, but and I don't know. The front office put the statement out of the singular goal, and I think that's why, because I'm one of those people that are saying it's finals or bust. But it's not because that's how I feel, because logically I agree with you. He has a new team, he's a new coach, they got to learn each other, philosophy, that chemistry, all that. But that statement was already put out. So you know what I mean? Right. Once they put that statement out in the wording that they put it out, because they could have definitely went. They could have talked about why they want to go in a different direction without putting the pressure on whoever the next coach may be of getting to the finals or winning the finals. So I disagree. I think that pressure that shout out, shameless plug. My next episode is all about the hot seat. It's about the front office and it's about the coach. And I think what I mean. It's there for both of them.
Yeah. Both of them on the hot seat. And Mike Brown is on the hot seat coming into this job, and it's not even his fault.
Through no fault of his own.
It's not even his fault. And he's coming into the hot seat. You know what I'm saying? Not even his fault. That's that's kind of crazy. But he's accepting the job. So
and
he understands that.
That's right.
That's right. You know what I mean? So excuse me. So I mean, he can only blame himself for that part of it. You know what I mean? He can only blame himself. And to be honest with you, it's going to be hard to compare all season long. Everyone's going to compare Mike Brown and Tom Thibodeau. It's going to be hard to compare the two, in my opinion.
One of the things that I do like about him is like I've always looked at him as a defensive minded coach.
Mhm.
And I've listened to a lot of other people speak about him and consider him an offensive minded coach. So I guess when I try to pinpoint like what might be his flaw, what might be his area of weakness, I really can't pinpoint anything other than the overtime. You know what I mean? That stint in Sacramento, overtime, it seemed like he was going up and then he plateaued and it was relatively quick. But it seems like you don't hear many bad things about him. And
Right.
even with the situation in Sacramento, I don't know if it would be like that in New York, but you didn't hear bad things about him in the end. You know what I mean? It wasn't like people was blaming him for the current situation.
Right.
So I think those are all positive aspects of it. Where one thing I will say about Thibodeau, he came in with the flaws already. You know what I mean? Like it was pinpointed. Everybody knew what his reputation was before he got the job here. Yeah, you know what I mean? And it didn't change. So you can't pinpoint anything like that with Mike Brown. So I think that is a positive sign.
I guess the question would be, why didn't it work anywhere? I mean, you can point to Cleveland. People will point to LeBron, right? After LeBron, he hasn't been back. People ask that question, right? Well, why hasn't it worked for Mike Brown? And I mean, and the same question was asked for Tibbs, and should rightfully so be asked for Tibbs. Why didn't it work? The two throughout the season, it's going to be hard to compare the two. I think, people are going to, but I think it's going to be hard to compare the two because he's going to have tools at his disposal that Thibodeau did not have. He's going to have consistency and stability that Tom Thibodeau did not have. So I think it makes it a little bit tougher to compare the two.
Or when you say consistency and stability, are you talking about the roster, or you talking or you talking about his job? What are you referencing when you
Talking
say
about the roster.
Okay.
Roster.
I just had to make, I'm like, I don't know. It's yet to be seen how stable the job is.
Right.
But,
No, I'm talking about the roster, right? Because
okay,
with Tom Thibodeau, there was
a lot of turnover.
A lot of turnover every year. I mean, you figured starting this season, there would have been much more consistency with the roster because you had your top 6, 7 guys on the team, and there was going to be this consistency going forward for the next couple of years. Mike Brown is going to benefit off of that, right? And he's also going to benefit off of having a few additions to the bench that I don't care what nobody says. Are huge upgrades. Huge upgrades, you know what I'm saying? And we'll talk about when we get to the bench. We'll talk about, I had a little argument with someone on Twitter about the bench stuff and all of that. But, Mike Brown is going to he's going to benefit off of, an improved bench. So he'll have some tools at his disposal that Thibodeau didn't, and roster consistency, so it's going to be hard to compare the two, in my opinion.
Something else he will have, and I don't know, maybe better being a coach. I don't know how beneficial this is or what, but it does seem like the organization is trying to bring in assistants, lead assist, the second coach. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to bring in a plethora of coaches to have on his staff, which I think Thibodeau started off that way, and then eventually got his staff and so I don't know if it's better to have a mix of philosophies and mix of guys that can maybe help in different directions. But this points back to the other statement that the Knicks put out of, looking for a coach that is, I forget the terminology, but basically willing to work with the front office. You know what I mean, and things like that. So yeah, I think that is could be a good sign. You know what I mean, bringing in some helpful minds that maybe are better in different areas that where they could help him.
Personally, I don't like the fact that they chose his coaching staff. Yeah, I don't like I don't like that. I feel like every coach has the right or should be able to choose their coaching staff because it's their voice, especially in a seat like this.
This was the term. The terminology was collaborative effort. So if the coaching staff was put together in a collaborative effort, that's different than the actual front office saying, all right, we got this guy in, this guy in, this guy in. Because to your point, if the front office is just making that decision on their own and it's not a collaborative effort, then he could be looking over his shoulder. He could feel unsecure in his job. But if it's a collaborative effort and he's saying, all right, now I wouldn't like this guy, but I would like this guy, and you know what I mean, they're giving him a list, and then I think that could be beneficial.
Right. But I feel like this, right? I almost feel like when you're in that job interview, you're under duress. Right? You're under duress.
Whatever they say, I'll do. Yeah, I'll take him.
So it's like, are you okay with these 4 guys remaining on your staff? Oh yeah. Oh, 25 million? Yeah. I'm cool with it. You know what I mean? I feel like you're kind of under duress that way. You know what I mean? Because if they asked me, and I don't know how much he's going to make, but if they asked me and I was going to make $25 million a year, I'll say, put anybody you want out there. I can work with whoever. Just give me my $25 million. So I feel like that's a little bit under duress. I would rather he be able to choose his own staff because now, if it were me, I would rather choose my own staff, right? Because now, if you want to fire me, it's because of me and the people that I did it. But if you want to fire me, I'm like, well, you had this guy in here and he didn't really collaborate with me. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I don't like that part of it. That's on the front office, not Mike Brown.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I don't like that part of it. But I'm rooting for him, and I'm gonna support him. I seen somebody in the chat say, you give Mike Brown the same love that you gave Tom. I mean, he hasn't coached the team yet, so I'm gonna, let him coach the basketball team. But I'm not gonna try to, unless he's like Fizdale, which I doubt because he has a coaching record. He has
a resume.
He has a resume. You know what I'm saying? So I doubt he's going to be like Fizdale. I know he's not going to be like Fizdale. You know what I mean? So no, I'm not going to bash him. I'm going to support him just like I supported Tibbs. You know what I mean? I do think he's a good coach. Is he the coach to get us over the top to win a championship?
To be determined.
It's to be determined. You know what I'm saying? Because with the way things are in the Eastern Conference, with the additions to the team and the way things are in the Eastern Conference, one could argue that Tibbs would have done the same thing. You don't know, right? But, Tibbs is no longer. It's Mike Brown. You know what I mean? So it's going to be, how does Mike Brown utilize the players on his basketball team? We know he's a guy with a lot of energy. He's younger. Right, so that's going to help him be a little bit more relatable to the players, I think, because he's younger.
Mm-hmm.
He's coached high-profile teams, like we mentioned earlier, so that's going to go a long way in the locker room with the players because he has that reputation.
And in the media,
guys, and in the media. You know what I mean? He's been to the finals. He's been to the finals with the Warriors, been to the finals with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So that holds a lot of cachet with the players in the locker room, knowing that they have a head coach who's been there and can draw back on that experience to say, here's what we did to get there on both teams. So here's what we need to do to get there. You know what I mean? You know, and maybe it's the fit. Maybe it's not even all about the X's and O's and the defense and the offense. Maybe it's really about the fit. Maybe that's what the front office worries about the most right now with this coaching change is the fit. You know, maybe they just felt Tom Thibodeau wasn't a good fit. His style wasn't a good fit with the players, with the front office, whatever. So maybe it's the fit. We will find out shortly enough. We got a caller on the line, ladies and gentlemen. My man Silk Sutton in the building. What's popping with you, brother? How you feeling?
What up, Sam? What up, Tony? Yo, Sam, I
Peace,
know
man.
when I heard the thing about Jenkins said that Brown wanted because Jenkins wasn't really feeling it, I said, yeah, that's him. Because that guy got fired because they replaced all his assistants. And the fact that he's hearing the Knicks probably in the interview asking him, how do you feel about keeping some of the assistants? We're going to leave it up to you. But how do you feel about keeping some of the guys? And Knicks like to keep certain specialists. And like I said, I wanted to keep the guy Bryant because he's the best big man coach out there. So I can see them want to keep him because they saw how Mitch improved with his movement under the basket. I think Mo Cheeks is a West 5. I'm just going to say that. I think the West brought in Mo Cheeks, and I think Mo Cheeks, even though they said Mo Cheeks and Tibbs got along, I think Mo Cheeks was in there watching Tibbs for West. But I think not a coach. I just don't see him do a lot of watching. That's my conspiracy theory. That's my aluminum foil hat. I just think I didn't mind Mo Cheeks going, as we talked about before, because I think he's a West ally. But it sounds like they're saying they give you the choice, but that's not really a choice. If you think about it, you just got the job, and they say, well, we want you to keep some of these guys because some of these guys are good. Like the guy who says win the challenge or not, and he promoted to the summer league coach. They want to promote him. So now you come in as the new coach and like, now I want all these guys going. I want my own guys. They'll probably roll with it for 2 years, but they're gonna do it to him like they did with Tibbs. All right, we'll go your way, but you better win. Because if you don't win, you're gone. Because Tibbs probably had a certain way. He don't talk to coaches during the game. He listens to their input before the games and after the game. But during the game, he's doing what he want to do. And I guess over time, 5 years on, it's all right, we're going to do it your way. But if you don't win, you don't want to listen to nobody, you don't want to take advice from nobody, it's going to be on you. And I think the fact is, unless Tibbs got to the finals, he was gone.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, it could be. You know, I don't know. It could be that unless he got to the finals, he was gone. It's hard to say. You know, and maybe he wasn't as, maybe he wasn't collaborative or, however they want the coach to be. Does that necessarily, people use a lot of code words. Is that word collaborative code for do what we want you to do?
Here's what I'll say, Sam. I think if multiple people on the coaching staff has come to him with suggestions from their own point of view, and he doesn't take heed to the suggestions, I think that, it'll start to get a reputation. It'll be like, all right, well, I've been telling him this. It's cool. He want to do it his way, and now maybe another assistant. You know what I mean? Like I think that's what it is. It's not necessarily. It's not Phil Jackson saying run the triangle. I don't think it's that. You know what I'm saying? It's them respecting Tibbs and his track record and philosophy, but also saying, listen, this is what we see, and it's not just me who sees it. He sees it. It's not just me. You know what I mean? Maybe a player sees it. You know what I mean? So I think that's what it. I think that's the way I. And this, you know what I mean? Like, you know, you and I are both Tibbs supporter, but his flaws were his flaws and notable and visible. You know what I mean? I think at some point people have gone to him and said, "Hey," whether it's the minutes, you know what I mean, whatever it is, the rotation. I just think he didn't take heed. Now, at the same time, I think you gotta respect the coach. You hired him, let him do what he does. But when you get to the point, you know what I mean, where you feeling some kind of way, you're gonna let him go. So I kind of get it. Again, my biggest problem with the firing was really the statement. I didn't agree with the firing, but I was okay with it. It was the statement that I felt like just put so much pressure and was so like it almost like throwing Tibbs under the bus. You didn't have to really do that. You could have. You got PR guys, whoever. To just I just didn't like the way it was written. Me personally.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So you think the statement came from Leon Rose, or was it just a pre-written statement that about the championship thing? Just because for some reason, I think Leon Rose don't speak in public a lot unless it's Alan Horner or somebody he's secure with, because what he may want to say don't always come out fluid in the right way. And I think somebody wrote that statement. That we have out here about championships. We don't. I personally think it with Tibbs, they think economy. They think what we can best work for us financially that we can make this work and win a chip. And Tibbs' way of only playing vets or guys he trusts and not trying to play around with the rookies at no times in the regular season when they under the cap, close to the cap. I think that's okay. We this is as far as we can go with Tibbs, because in this cap generation, you got to do what the Pacers coaches do. You got to do what the Cleveland. You got to throw some of these rookies in during the regular season. You may lose some games that you should win, but you got to see what they got. You got to play around, and because you can't just go with your vets. We ain't got the money. We ain't got the money to bring in the vets that you need in every position. But Tibbs don't want to play. He gets frustrated when he sees rookies doing dumb rookie mistakes, and he wants 30 seconds in, he take them out. But during the regular season, early on, you got time to play around with that. But that's not Tibbs. He refused to do that. And I think over the time, especially after the Fournier and Kimber stuff, it started wearing on the management. He wouldn't accommodate that. He wouldn't try guys in and see if he could work with them and player development instead of just shipping them to the G League. And so I think these past 2 years, they said, all right, you want to do it your way? Do it your way. But if you don't do it, you don't get to where we want you to go. Because we can't keep bringing people in and spending money on vets. We ain't got it. We got to work some of these rookies. We spent the last draft. We number of second rounders. We picked up in one first rounder that we got a discount on. You got to have them. You got to work with them as our bench. Because we traded our bench for OG. We traded most of our bench for McCall. You got to work with the guys we got from the second round and see if one or two of them can pop with us. And Tibbs refused to play him. And I think they got fed up. Now, Brown is weird to me because Brown is the defensive coach on the mentality of Tibbs, but Brown has the number one offense and number one defense in places he coaches. So I don't know what to expect from Brown. Is it going to be an offensive team or a defensive team? Because he kind of had number one in both. So I think all line on that dude from New Orleans, that offensive, that top assistant, if we get him, we might have he might be able to work with them.
And my fact, I lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, Brown is weird to me. I'm not, because like me and you, since I was for the Memphis coach, but it seemed like he got ATSG. He saw how he got fired last time when they replaced all his assistants. So he probably want to start off with all his own assistants. And the Knicks don't never do that. They got their specialists that they want to keep from past regimes, that they're good at what they do. They're not gonna let you pick they're not gonna tell you we got pick we're gonna pick all your coaches for you like Memphis did with him. But they said we're suggesting these dudes because we know what they do and they do well. I don't know Mo Cheeks do well, but they want to West want to keep Mo Cheeks. But the big man who plays, they want to keep him.
Yeah,
the guy who knows how to call the timeouts when we challenge and stuff, he's been pretty good with his. They want to keep him.
Yeah.
So they
And if those are specialists, coaches, especially in today's NBA, I mean, you could have like 12 coaches on you know what I mean, on your bench. That doesn't necessarily have to be.
We want these 4. We suggest only these 4. You got everybody else.
Yeah, that's what I'm leading to. He could still have his guys on the staff. You know what I mean? But if you got a big man coach, that's what he's doing. He's focusing on the big man and on the development of the big man. Huck Porty, Mitch, whatever. You know what I mean? Same thing with Mo Cheeks. I think he's a guard coach. You know what I mean? Like he's helping Deuce. He's helping Brunson. So I think those guys are there as specialists in the coaching field, more so than in the decision making and the strategic thing. I think they're really there for development of their category of players, and I think that changes the narrative of, you know, keeping a Mo Cheeks or keeping a Bryant, you know what I mean, because those guys aren't interfering with the head coach or the lead assistant's job or position. They're strictly there to get the guys in their position better.
What I hope is that it's like what you said, Tony, that there was a discussion like, hey, you know, are you cool with keeping this guy and this guy and this guy? You know, let's talk about the coach, or you know, let's talk about the coaching staff, and tell me, is there anyone on here that you would keep, that you wouldn't mind keeping around? Boom, 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 boom. You know what I mean? I really hope it was that way. We would never know, but I personally would feel much better about it being that way. You know what I mean? Because if you have good coaches, then yeah, you do want to keep those guys around because they're good coaches, right? And you you don't want to let them go to another basketball team, right? So if you have good coaches around, you want to keep those guys around. I just hope it was, they talk about things being collaborative. I just hope it was collaborative that way, and not, hey, we want to keep these guys.
Here's something really positive. I remember when I lost my train of thought, but there's questions about him getting to the finals and having LeBron, right? And the rest of his coaching tenure, however it played out, still got that 60% win percentage. One thing that I will say is this is the best team he's ever coached. Even if you go back to those LeBron teams, you know what I mean? It was LeBron. So yeah, LeBron carried in the Allen Iverson style, a team to the finals under Mike Brown. So I think part of that has to go to Mike Brown. And now, like I said, this is the best collective team that he's ever coached. So if he was able to do that with LeBron and that squad, and then bring Sacramento up from not being in the playoffs and their drought, that I think this is a positive for him and a true test for him as well. You know what I mean? So he probably looking at it the same way. Like, I've accomplished what I've accomplished, and I've never coached a full squad of players like I'm about to now.
About to coach.
Yeah, I could do it. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and Tony, he holds players accountable. Sometimes he talks about them in the press conference. But the thing with De'Aaron Fox before he got fired said, if y'all fire him, I'm gonna want to go because that'd be my fifth coach in 5 years. So he kind of defended him, and so Sacramento did it anyway. So I'm leaving Sacramento at Sacramento because they different.
Yeah, I mean,
they
Sacramento.
They different.
Period. Right.
Because they probably wanted to find him the year before, but because they started off with the season slow, they had it in their mind, but we getting rid of him.
And I mean, I'm sure the front office did their homework on that entire situation if they didn't already know about it. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure they did their homework to find out, hey, what really went down, and boom, 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 boom.
Do you think coach like the front office are allowed to reach out, like for instance, to get De'Aaron Fox's side of that whole, or is it strictly?
Well, West probably got his contact that he can go around that without touching the Knicks.
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
You know how it is in the league. Teams are going to be like, "Oh, you trying to poach my players?" and da 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 da. I don't know.
But let me ask you a question, Sim.
All right.
Because I heard the Knicks got a loophole that like they did last year, where they didn't sign our last player till like 2 weeks into the regular season. That basically we could bring your Shamba back if we just tell them, well, we got you at the mid-level. Just when the season starts, 2 weeks into the season, right for that
14 days.
Last game, we're gonna bring you back at the mid-level. Now, if we could do that with Shamba as the last man, or we got your BBBS boy, bad back Ben Simmons.
Say that
as the last guy.
We're gonna talk about the whole Ben Simmons thing, but go ahead, say that again.
Right. They said, because the guy from Knicks Film School, the guy who do the cap stuff, he said there's a loophole that I think we need like 14 or 15 guys on our roster.
Yeah, you got to start. You could start the season with I think 12, and then you got 14 days to fill it out. You know what I mean? We did it last year. We waited the 14th day. You could do it. You could do a 10 day and then extended and all that.
First 2 weeks. Yeah, he said the last spot. That last man, if you wait 2 weeks where the season starts, you could get that last guy on your roster with a mid-level exception. If you wait those 2 weeks, when the season starts, and that's what they're saying. That's how they can sneak Shamba back on the team with his money.
Well, I think it's a minimum contract.
Yeah, it's gonna be a veteran's minimum.
Right, but he got to trust the Knicks that something else won't come along, and if we do the Morris brother kind of thing and ignore what we promised you and do something else. You got to trust the Knicks will honor what they say.
I mean, if anybody's gonna believe him, it'll be him because we held on to him through his injury. We already showed it. They already showed that they, you know what I mean, they'll honor whatever it is because they did it for him in particular. Right. We could have signed Mook at that point.
If it's him or Shamba, if it's Ben Simmons or Shamba, who does Sim want? At that 15th spot, that situational dude.
Me?
Yes,
6'10".
Ben. I'm not gonna lie to you. I want Ben.
Do you think he'll be happy with for the situational? Now this is situational. 15 guys.
I'm not convinced that he's going to be situational. Remember, we're not dealing with Tibbs. That's a Tibbs word. That's a Tibbs word. Am I right? That's a Tibbs word, right? Situational. That's a Tibbs word.
You know my word for Ben, right? My word for Ben is BBBS. Bad back Ben Simmons. He ain't always there.
Let me ask you a question.
So he might be situational because he's always hurt.
Do you trust the front office?
Yeah, but we had guys that got hurt with the front office next.
Huh? I mean, but you trust the front office, right? You trust the front office, right?
Man, I don't want that.
Hey, the front office, they inquired, so they obviously think something could be positive.
Yeah, they want ball handlers. If Chamber's not really a ball handler, he could do a little.
We also need defense on this team.
Mm-hmm.
He never got you defense, but he's not a ball handler.
No, I'm not saying he doesn't.
Yeah, but I think the guys we brought in, we're going to talk about them. That's their own. Like, I think those are offensive guys more than defensive guys. I agree. We need to add another defensive guy, but the fact I'm kind of on the Ben Simmons train now as well because again he's on.
You ain't going there too now.
First of all, I was on it when he was still on a huge contract just because of his skill set. Now it makes even more sense. You talk about minimum contract Ben Simmons. where he can
ain't
bring.
asking for minimum. He want more than he don't want no vet minimum. He acts like he a star still. He's still talking like he a star.
Well, then we can't afford him because all we can afford is a
I don't want no vet minimum. Man, you ain't doing nothing to deserve more than a vet. He's talking like he is still a star. That's why I said his mentality, I don't think it will be suited for a 15th man. That's why I don't think he's here. He's there for us. Like CP3, he still want to start at point guard at his age. Malcolm Brogdon.
But I'm not just talking about.
Play.
I mean, I don't know. Ben Simmons offers a lot of things that this particular squad, I believe, needs: the facilitation,
ball handling,
the ball handling, a guy that can defend 4 positions,
and has size.
I just feel that he offers a lot of what this team needs.
And I think with the signing,
right whose spot is he taking? At 9 right that we got.
Hey, well, you're talking 9. You're talking in Tibbs terms. You're talking in Thibodeau terms.
12, we ain't going 12.
Hey,
I know Brown
listen,
go to 10, but
listen.
We ain't going 12.
Let's put it like this: if Jordan Clarkson and Yabusele was on this basketball team, Tibbs would have played them, and they would have been a 9-man rotation. There's no.
I'm not sure about Clarkson.
I believe so. He's a scorer.
He played quickly. I can't see him not playing Clarkson.
He's a Tibbs guy. He's a Tibbs type of offensive player.
I'm not sure about Clarkson.
Right?
He played quickly.
Obi.
Right. So, but
he might have been yelling at him like he yelled at Obi all the time.
I think he would have yelled at him, but he would have played him. He might have yelled at him. He might have got pissed off, but he would have played him because he can produce points. But what I'm saying is, you're talking in Tibbs terms. You're saying the 9-man rotation, right? You're saying it's situational. Mike Brown might expand the rotation, and so a guy like Ben might still play because Mike Brown expands the rotation. So we can't just think about an 8 or 9-man rotation because we don't know. Mike Brown might have a deeper rotation than that.
No, I'm Mike gonna give an automatic 9. 9 is automatic. 10 is maybe. I ain't going 12. So I don't
okay, maybe 10. Maybe 10.
I mean, we 10 deep right now anyway.
I'm just not for Ben. I'm just not for Bad Bag. Bad Bag got me down.
Listen, people, I know people don't like him. He's got a bad reputation, but he has a skill set that this team needs. And if you could pick him up for cheap.
But he's not thinking that way, Sim. He's thinking he's still a star.
Okay, he might be thinking that. Yeah, but I mean, he's probably still just gonna get.
Did you see him play for the Clippers last year? Because I don't think he was. I don't think there was any ego or like he wasn't trying to. He deferred more than anything, and I thought he had a nice, like a good time, and he played well in that role.
You know why, Tony?
On the Clippers.
And you know what? And you know why, Tony?
Because they had Kawhi and
he's looking for a bag now. Contract year. He'll play nice on a contract year.
I don't think I think he understands where his value is league wide, and I think he already got overpaid for so many years that I can't really see a team that's gonna go out there and pay him unless he's going to somebody, with the cap space that's willing to take that chance. But he ain't getting no big contract. Not this year. He might be able to do a prove it contract again and do it, but he ain't getting no big contract this year.
I agree, fellas. It is for me personally with this team. For our bench, give me shooting and defense opposed to a facilitator and defense and no shooting. Give me Shambit because I know he can hit a 3. He can play defense. He ain't gonna be the passer of Ben, but maybe have other guys that can help out with that.
I'm just gonna say this. I'm just gonna say this. I'm just gonna say this. If you want the type of offense that Indiana had, you need a facilitator. Indiana had that kind of offense because Tyrese Halliburton is a facilitator. When Tyrese Halliburton was out of the game, you saw what kind of offense they had. You need a facilitator, a guy that can get the ball up the floor if you're trying to push the ball. You need a natural facilitator out there if you want to have that kind of offense. That's just my opinion of it. You need a natural facilitator, and I think that he is a natural facilitator. Like Nostalgic Nick is saying right now, he's low risk, high reward.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see which way it goes.
All
I'm
right,
gonna get off the phone so
I appreciate you, bro.
other people get on here a little bit.
No doubt.
We just choose to just do. I'm for champion. You for bad back. I just do this. I'll holler at you.
Peace. I'm just saying, man. You know what I'm saying? We talked about Ben Simmons early, Tony. Early, very, very early. We talked about Ben Simmons and that he could be a guy to really look at. The front office is at least taking a look at him. You know what I mean? Sean said Tyler Kolek.
I like him too, but he ain't 6'10". So I think that's the difference.
He ain't
with
6'10".
Simmons brings. That's an automatic advantage, and he's bringing the facilitating. You know what I mean? So if you're doing that at 6'10", that changes everything. Now you start seeing lobs. You know what I mean? But he can see over whoever's defending him.
That is, and when you have he can see over top of the defense. You know what I mean? We need, listen, Jordan Clarkson brings ball handling to this basketball team, right? Which we desperately needed last year. We need more ball handlers. Ben Simmons will also bring ball handling to this basketball team. Now, let's remember, Jordan Clarkson is 6'3". Me and Tony both thought, 6'5". No, he's 6'3". Right? So he's still small. Now, he's a better ball handler, and he can create his own shot. So defenses are going to respect that. You know, but last year we struggled mightily. 6'8". Freaking, I can't even think of his name right now.
Wait, who?
Dang, on our team. Freaking.
We're Precious?
No. Dang, I'm losing it. What time is it? It's 11:36. I'm losing my time. Forward.
6'8".
Supposed to be the warden.
OG and
Mikal Bridges. He couldn't handle the rock. You know what I'm saying? You know, so he should be able to see over the defense, but he couldn't handle the defense. Ben Simmons can handle the ball. He can see over the defense. He can create for others. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think he brings a dynamic that this team doesn't have. You know, Lonzo Ball would have been a perfect fit there, in my opinion, too. You know, for what I have in mind for this basketball team.
And the difference between him, because I think the same type of risk as far as like injuries and things you have with Lonzo that you have with Ben Simmons. The difference is Lonzo was on a guaranteed $10 million.
Yeah, we're talking about a guy that, you know what I'm saying, is a veterans minimum guy. That's what we're talking about. A vet min. You know what I mean? Let me get to a phone call, man. Real quick. On the line, what we got? Ron from Pittsburgh. Ron, what's popping with you, brother? How you feeling?
Hey, how are you feeling? How are you guys doing?
Doing pretty good, man. Doing pretty good.
Peace, fam.
As far as Simmons goes, I'll pass. I'm not going to deny the guy's talent. I just don't want this to become a circus. I think that, with the maturation of some of the young guys that weren't ready last year, they're probably still not going to be ready, but you never know. All these guys in the summer league, all the guys that may or may not be on the roster, and all the changes, a 10-day and everything else. And if Simmons is used to being, a starter, he could be maybe the 10th guy on the rotation. I think right now they got a solid 9-man rotation. Clarkson he had foot surgery in March because he has that plantar fasciitis? Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
Which is a pretty painful injury, and I think it's something that really doesn't go away. I know Antonio Gates, a tight end of the Chargers, used to have it. Probably other basketball players have had it. So that's what limited him, and that's why he didn't play at the end of last season. He had the surgery in March. He's a good pickup. I'm happy with him. I know he's had a few fist fights along the way, but he and Josh Hart certainly bring attitude and toughness to this team that they need. Yubasele is a fascinating guy to me. You would not think a guy that muscle bound would be as limber as he is, but the way he runs the floor, despite being muscle bound the way he is. And there's two things that I'm just noticing with these guys, both with Clarkson and him. They both bring something that I did not see the Knicks have last year. I did not see guys exploding to the hoop. Everybody was taking outside shots. Maybe Mikal every now and then took one of his old fadeaway 10 or 15 footers, but just about everybody was shooting from the outside, except every now and then when either McBride or Brunson decided to drive to the hoop. Everybody else was taking outside shots. And this is a guy, Yubasele, that, he's not afraid. I mean, he'll take the ball at the foul line and he'll just, ram it down somebody's throat. And if I'm a defender, I want to get out of this guy's way. This guy is just a monster. And he can hit. I think he hit from 38% from three. Defense probably below average, but he's working hard. He works really hard from what I hear in the off season in terms of doing everything he can to get better. I love the guy's attitude. Seems like a very nice guy, tough guy. And to get a guy like that who really is in technically his second season, despite his age. And Clarkson is a guy that they kind of targeted last year. At least he was one of the guys that were mentioned. Maybe it was 2 years ago now. I'm getting older when it comes to, targeting point guards. But his name was brought up quite a bit. But I think those are two positive guys. And I think Clarkson can do things, especially as a passer, that Kolek can do. But I think Clarkson is much more of a threat to drive to the hoop and still, which Kolek isn't at this point, and be able to still hit a guy from a corner three. That's depending on whether these guys will hit their corner threes, because they're having problems with that. Yubasele is better with his threes from the top of the circle, much like Cat. So, but I do see that both of them bringing things that they didn't have last year. Hopefully the guys that were rookies will have another year experience. It'll be very interesting to see what happens in the summer league with all the guys that they've accumulated. I'd like to really see this guy. Is it pronounced Naji? Nnaji?
Mm-hmm.
I'd really like to see him. He's 6'11". I'd like to see him at center. I want to see if his defense is really as good as they say it is. The rookie that they took at 50 probably has to develop. I think they probably will stash him for a year. Everything is up in the air right now. But the thing is, I think that Brown is going to have to do a juggling act here. And the reason I'm saying no to Simmons is it's one thing to do a juggling act based on guys' strengths and weaknesses. It's another thing based on guys' personalities to do a juggling act. The one thing that I think they really need is a knockout three-point guy. And there was a guy that was in a draft 2 years ago that was just released by New Orleans. Supposedly it was because they have a log jam. They have new management there named Antonio Reeves, played at Kentucky, got his master's degrees there. So he was a 24-year-old rookie, I think, when he came in. But I saw last year, I mean, he hit 40% from three. He plays great defense. He had 21 steals for the year off the bench, 6'5". And the Knicks had some interest in him going into supposedly in the draft process. So he would be a great guy to pick up and probably pick up at the minimum. And speaking of the minimum, you know, they are so close right now that there's going to be a lot of maneuvering around here. I mean, it's going to have to be the veteran minimum, hopefully a veteran minimum of a guy who isn't much of a veteran, because that number will go up, you know, if they're taking a guy in his 30s or something. And maybe at the end of the day, maybe Nijay and McCullough, you know, are the two guys that fill out the final two spots. But I mean, I'm looking optimistic for this year. It's just a matter of how they juggle the talent they have, and maybe how they juggle the personalities, because that did come under question towards the end of the last year. I mean, I'm not saying Cat's a problem, but I'm saying, you know, we don't know, you know, how that politics is going to work out, how Brown's going to, you know, deal with it. So I think there's a lot of questions, but there's every reason to believe, for me, to get excited about the year and to think that we have a good chance to get to the finals. I didn't mean to talk so much, but you know, the other guy talked an awful lot too, so I don't feel that guilty.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Any
Tony.
feedback at all on any of the stuff I talked about?
There was a lot. There was a lot. I mean, first of all, I do believe that Clarkson brings something to this team that we didn't have in the ball handling, that spark off the bench. I mean, you know, 15 points a game off the bench. He's been a 6th man of the year candidate.
Yeah.
You know, he won 6th man of the year, didn't he?
I think so.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
I think in 21 or something.
Yeah, he won 6th man of the year. So I definitely think that he brings something that we just didn't have last year. I mean, and it's critical what he brings because of his ball handling. You know what I'm saying? His ability to create off the dribble. He may give us some headaches from time to time.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? You know, he may give us some headaches from time to time, but what he's gonna bring, I think, is gonna overshadow any headaches that he would bring to the basketball team.
I keep mentioning I really liking him to Emmanuel Quickly and his role. You know what I mean? Not saying they're the same player. Quickly is probably a little bit of a better shooter, but I think you're gonna get like when you say, you know, he'll frustrate you at times or whatever. But the biggest thing that I think, or another dynamic that he brings that was missing, because you talked about them bringing things that we didn't have last year, is another guy that can get to the line. You know what I mean? And so now you're talking about four, you know, maybe 4 more points off the bench just from the free throw line. You know what I mean? You're talking about penalty situations because of his aggressiveness. So I think that's really going to help us with him.
Let me ask both of you this: when it comes to Clarkson, last year, the Knicks were good, very good with Karl Anthony Towns when he played with the bench, right? You know, kind of being the focal point. How do you think Clarkson is going to be able to, you know, play with Towns if that's the lineup off the bench and still allow Karl Anthony Towns to be the focal point of that offense? I mean, you would think that because Clarkson is such, because he's a dynamic scorer, that it would help Karl Anthony Towns, right? That it would help him. But do you think, is Clarkson too much of a me first guard that it may not help Karl Anthony Towns? That it may take away? Because Karl Anthony Towns, Cat has the tendency to fade away when you have a guard that is aggressive offensively.
There are a lot of guys that think that the ball at some point should go through Towns, that they could see him be more of a facilitator and a passer, and not just a guy that's kind of hangs around taking a three every now and then and is lackadaisical on defense. Clarkson, the thing is, Clarkson, I think his field goal percentage has never really been that good. He takes a lot of shots, to make his shots, but he does, like you said, drive to the hoop a lot, which Yubasele also does. So they'll pick up, they'll end up getting to the foul line a lot more. It's really just interesting how surgically they did manage to get a couple of guys that I think are what they need in terms of what they didn't have last year. And it's not big jumps. They're not major things, but they're small things.
Right around
the thing is, Clarkson also defensively has a lot of lapses too. So if they ever end up with Cat and Clarkson and Brunson together on the floor,
which will happen,
that's going to be a problem. That could be a real problem. And that's why they really have to get the most they can out of Bridges and OG on the defensive side. Well, OG, I'm not worried about, but certainly in the case of Bridges, he's got to bring that intensity all the time. I mean, he just has to. He's well conditioned. We know that. He's got to bring that intensity because those are the two guys defensively outside of Mitch, and I think Mitch is going to be in and out, that are going to be your defensive guys. And in terms of the argument that I'm seeing going around, like, who are the starting five? I mean, look, this isn't baseball. There's going to be all kinds of matchups, combinations. I don't want to see Mitch play the kind of minutes. We were lucky in a way that, we did well during the season. And when a time was right, which was the playoffs, that was a time that Mitch was available. We might not be that lucky this year. If he does miss time, it might be at the worst time instead of the best time. So, we have to look at the full season and the way things fell and realize that this year it's going to fall differently. And I just think that Mitch should be on limited minutes. I don't see him playing more than 25 a game. If they start pushing him into the 30s and Towns, with him into the 30s more or less, I think, there are advantages on the court to that. But, Mitch, to me, looks like an old guy. He's got an old body and he's a young guy with an old body. And we know that. And if we push it, he just might not be there when we really need him. And not that Josh Hart isn't a good guy to come off the bench, because that's probably what he would do best. But, Hart does bring the hustle. He does get the rebounds. He just doesn't have the rim protection of the defense, that two centers would give you. But a lot of things, it's going to be, with Brown, it's going to be lighting a fire under Towns on defense. Because you look at his foul problems that he had, and they were dumb fouls. A lot of them were offensive. A lot of them were stupid. Shoving it back for no reason, that kind of thing. He's got to clean that up. I mean, the guy's making $50 million a year. For God's sakes, clean up your act. You got too much talent to be blowing it, and it's going to hurt the team, and the team's going to rely on you. And he's got to do that. nobody's asking him to be Mitch on defense, but he's got to, if he's going to foul guys, it's got to be legitimate fouls where he's really, a contending foul and not a stupid foul. Hart's got to cut down on the stupid passes. I know at the end of the day it might even out because, the hustle plays even out with the bad plays. Right. And
so
I mean,
I think
just one thing, each of these guys have something to work on. Yeah. And I don't care how many years have been in the league. I don't care how much money they're getting paid. They have to be receptive, especially with a new coach now. Show him respect and be able to have him sit down, even with these guys individually, and say, look, there's this aspect of your game that's got to improve for us to reach the finals.
I also think that part of the reason for Mike Brown is, one, he's probably, I would say he'd be a better relator to players because he's a little closer to their age, I think. And he's probably going to have maybe a more structured offense. You hear all the time how players would say, Tibbs kind of let you, he put you in a position and then let you do your thing. If the offense is a little bit more structured, you still got to give NBA players freedom, but if the offense is a little bit more structured, maybe you see some of those things like from Josh Hart calm down a little bit. This is the reason why I feel like you've got to have a real facilitator out there, because facilitators are decision makers as well. You know what I'm saying? So that they can help facilitate. So you don't have guys like Josh Hart, doing those type of things. So maybe, Mike Brown's offense that he brings to the team, just the setup of the offense, the structure of the offense leads to less of those type of mistakes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hopefully. So that it doesn't have to be like, hey, you've got to stop doing this. Maybe it's more like he comes in and it's like, here's the offense, here's the structure. Let's see how you operate in this structure, and then now start showing them how to correct their game based on the structure of the offense. Because they may not do the same things in his offense.
Exactly. But last year it was a matter of what's the problem? Is it the players or is it the coach? I mean, that was always the issue. Well, they made their decision, and the decision was a coach. Okay, you got a new coach. There's no more excuses. Both guys are winning coaches. All right, so I'm not saying Mike Brown is perfect, but I'm saying if some of the issues is the players or certain guys' attitudes or lack of discipline or whatever, no matter who the coach is going to be, they're not playing a game.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the thing I love about Brunson is that even though everybody says he's weak defensively, he is, but he does give effort defensively. He plays hard, especially in the playoffs defensively. But I'll get off. But Cat, he's too valuable offensively. He just is. I mean, he's too much of a talented guy to cast aside. And we've seen him at times take over. You just want him to raise his hand and say, hey, give me the ball. Get it to me. I'm going to be the facilitator. I'll hit a guy. I'll hit the guy with the pass, or I'll take it to the paint. I mean, Indiana was a perfect opportunity where he didn't have size going up against him, where he could have operated in the paint, whether it was Obi or whoever it was that was on him, and he didn't do it. And I don't know if it's a lack of focus or effort or what. And I don't know how much a coach can do about that. Because when you're talking about paying guys 40 or 50 million a year, the idea of well, let's bench the guy and bring in somebody else. I mean, at this stage, you shouldn't have to do that. these guys know what their roles are, or they will, hopefully.
Right.
But again, like I said, I'm just optimistic. I think most people are. There's always people that are going to complain. Again, the Ben Simmons thing, I never really thought about it, but I never really thought about him taking a minimum contract.
Right. Yeah.
And I think Tony brought up. I think he brought up that that he might not be happy, playing very few minutes if it comes down to that.
Right. Well, we'll see. Ron, I appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, thank you
No
very
doubt.
much for letting me in.
No problem. Peace. Yeah. We talked a lot about Clarkson. Sean Richardson said they won't be playing 40 minutes a night anymore. Bridges and OG will have a lot of intensity. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We don't know what Mike Brown is going to do as far as that's concerned. The Public Enemy said, is OG and Cat cool? That's what we need to worry about. Not worried about Ball and Simmons because Cat could be looking elsewhere. Towns equals a Giannis trade. Tom Thibodeau's gone. Cat's not looking to go anywhere. He's not looking to go anywhere. OG and Cat cool? I'm pretty sure they're probably cool. You know what I mean? Things are going to happen during the heat of the game. You know what I mean? Things are going to happen. And part of it is because, maybe because Towns and the defensive stuff, but, things are going to happen. Things are going to happen. I don't know. Yeah, Andre Bryant said Cat's from the New York area. He doesn't want to leave. He don't want to leave New York. I'm pretty sure. Let's talk about Yabusele. How you feel about that, Tony?
I just want to add one thing about Clarkson. I know the shooting percentages haven't been great. But similar to what I said with Mike Brown, this is also the best team he's played for as well. So that may motivate him. I think, I don't know if defense was necessarily part of his role when he was on the floor. So maybe the defense gets a little bit better. Maybe the percentages get a little bit better. I mean, he's playing for a lot now. I don't think he's ever been in a position where he was playing for anything other than maybe trying to win a 6-man award, or maybe trying to go get some buckets or whatever. So, I just wanted to add that before we transition to Yabusele.
Yabusele. Let's talk about Yabusele. What's your thoughts on
him? He's growing on me. I wasn't like, the signing didn't necessarily wow me, but I will say this, he was probably ranked maybe the 3rd best big man in free agency. The fact that he did choose us, because I'm sure he had other offers and other suitors. I thought Philly wanted to retain him. Considering the amount of money we got him for, I think Philly could have retained him. You know what I mean? Like, I thought maybe he would have been priced out of Philly having the ability, but I'm pretty sure we're pretty close in salaries. So if he signed that for us, I'm gonna look at it like he chose us rather than staying with the team that gave him a chance at a comeback. You know what I mean? So I do like the fact that he's an undersized big, but somebody mentioned it earlier. He could run the floor. You know what I mean? He could attack the rim. He's great as a trailer 3-point threat. And I do think he's still motivated. Like, the man, I'm assuming he wants to stay in the league. He fought his way back. That's always a good story as far as like perseverance, especially being a former 1st-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he still has some growth. So looking at him at where he is now, and the fact that I think he can still get better. He's still motivated to prove he belongs in this league. I think that's going to be a positive for him and his impact.
Yeah, yeah. He's definitely going to allow the Knicks to play with all sorts of lineups, right? All sorts of lineups. He'll be able to play next to Cat and really play in a 5-out offense if that's what you want to do, because both of them can shoot the three. And you can put 5 guys on the floor that can shoot the three. So your offense would really be spread open. Give a lot of teams trouble. He can, in the second unit, you know what I mean? He's gonna, be next to Huck Porty, assuming that he's next to Huck Porty. We'll see how Mike Brown decides to use the team. I think people are coming in automatically assuming it's going to be Mitch starting at the center spot. Who knows what Mike Brown wants to do with his system and how he wants to use the team. It could be, could not be. If on the bench, he would fit next to Huck Porty because he can shoot the three. Yabusele. And then, who else would be? If it's Huck on the bench and Yabusele on the bench, Deuce, Josh Hart, and Clarkson. You know what I mean? You probably got enough shooting, if Mike Brown is gonna use the entire 5. You know what I mean? He may not use the entire 5. He may keep a starter or 2 on the floor at all times with different lineups coming in and out. You know what I mean? But he definitely allows you to have a lot of versatility on the offensive and defensive side of the ball.
And Sim, speaking on his defense, because I know he's not considered a good defender in this league. I also do believe he played a lot of small ball 5, where I think he may be a better defender the more he's playing the 4 than he would be against playing against 5s. So that may help him defensively as well. I think his biggest issue on the defensive end, part of it was his lack of size. So when he's playing these big men, they could shoot over him. Whether it's a jump shot, hook shot, you know what I mean, like just in the paint. I think that advantage gets smaller when he's playing against 4s as opposed to 5s.
Yeah. So definitely an upgrade to the bench. I feel bad for Precious a little bit. He probably wanted to, be a Knick and stay in New York, but doubt he's going to be coming back to the Knicks. If so, he's going to be, deeper on the bench. Two solid pickups, I think. And Clarkson is a guy that you didn't think the Knicks were going to be able to have, you didn't think the Knicks were going to be able to pick up a guy like Clarkson. You know what I'm saying? He's, that's an impact player. Jordan Clarkson is. He's an impact player. And, nobody thought the Knicks would have the money to pick up that level of an impact player.
Yeah, I seen a couple people, referencing him as a vet, or as a minimum player, and I think that couldn't be further. Like the fact that he was bought out, and his contract would not have, like you said, we wouldn't have been able to afford him. We would have had to trade some assets, valuable assets for him.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a plus. The fact that you're getting a guy off waivers, that's also a plus. That again, like I said with Yabusele, it's another guy choosing the Knicks. You know what I mean? Like he could have went anywhere in the league. I'm sure we were not the only team interested. So yeah, we got a guy who's more than a veteran player, veteran minimum player, but got him for the veteran minimum. You know what I mean? And he chose us, where I'm sure he had a selection of teams that he could have went
right.
to.
Right, that's true. And he didn't even stop to think about or talk to any other teams. It was the Knicks. He chose the Knicks. You know, how much do you think? Got to ask the question. Now, I know people don't want to hear about Tibbs. How much do you think these players chose the Knicks because Tibbs is not the coach?
Well, I 100% there's influence in that. I mean, whether I mean we know what it was. The top 5 guys played the most minutes. The minutes was sparing for the second unit, whoever was in their rotation. I do think 100% it had to, because if Tibbs was here, there would have been a question on how much guaranteed minutes am I going to get. You know what I mean? I think either one of them. I believe, like you believe, that they would have been in the rotation. I don't know if their minutes would have been something that they would have been happy with under Tibbs. So I think it helped, and you know, we even though it's anonymous and we don't know what players they was asking, we know he's consecutively been or continuously has been on that list of coaches players wouldn't want to play for. So I do think that was an impact 100%.
Okay. And you know, a lot of people believe it. You know, Sean says, 100% the reason. I don't know. You know, Andre Bryant said 2 guys not known for defense came to the Knicks. You know, I don't know. King Ribby said, nah, he posted a tweet that Philly was trying to lowball him. You know, that's why he came to the Knicks. Sean
So
said role players won't ever choose to play for Thibodeau.
I agree with that.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Or at least they're gonna, gonna want to have a conversation. You know what I mean? Or some assurances.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's talk about more moves. Do you think there are any other moves on the way? You know, we talked about Ben Simmons. You know, there's a lot of people that's, keep Ben Simmons out. You know, we don't want Ben Simmons, this, that, and the third. More moves. Are there more moves on the way for the Knicks?
I think the only possibility is I think they're holding on to some assets and not making moves, just to see what ends up happening with Giannis. So I think they're trying to be as prepared as they can be. You know what I mean? If that opportunity opens up. I also think if it's a bidding war, we're nowhere close to winning that, considering we don't have the draft compensation that I think they would want. So I think that's a possibility. But after that, I really think it's the LeBron situation. You know what I mean? That could be another situation that they lean towards. But other than that, if those two things don't happen, I only think it's veteran minimum signings, and you know what I mean. I don't see anything transpiring if it's not Giannis or LeBron.
Mm. Do you think the LeBron thing is for real?
I think it's always for real if there's an opportunity. So I do think similar to like what I said with Giannis, I think they're holding on to, whatever potential assets they could use to go get them. And to be honest, I do feel like if I had to put a bet on one of the two happening, I would think I would think LeBron is more likely than Giannis, to be honest. It's more like if you're talking about a guy demanding number one, LeBron got the no trade clause. So technically he's gonna dictate wherever he goes anyway. But if you talk about who's more likely to ask out and ask to be in New York at this stage, currently, I would think LeBron is more likely to ask to be moved here than Giannis is. I think Giannis, the Knicks wouldn't be his only, you know what I mean, his only option, his only choice to pick from. And without that no trade clause, the Bucks don't gotta honor anything. You know what I mean? He could give you a list of teams and you choose between the teams, or they could just go out there and take the best offer out. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. I seen a tweet today from, I forgot who it was, who a reporter, insider, who said that they did some searching, some checking in on the whole LeBron thing, and it's no, it's there's no interest in him coming to the Knicks. Now that could be
what's that? No interest from him or no interest from the Knicks?
no interest from him. That well, they didn't say no interest. They just said it's a no. He just spoke to, I guess, LeBron's people, and they said it's a no. Now I will say this: LeBron is a perfect fit for this basketball team, in my opinion. I've been talking about the Knicks need a facilitator, right? Like he would be that ultimate guy who can facilitate as well as score the basketball, as well as can be a leader out there. All of those things, you know what I mean? Have a relationship with Mike Brown already. All of those things that I think this basketball team needs, he would provide. So, he would be a great fit. You'd have to give up probably OG and Mitch, right? We looked at the numbers earlier today or whenever it was, right? You'd have to give up, probably OG and Mitch, but he would be a really, really good fit for this basketball team, in my opinion.
The only thing that we will be giving up is longevity.
Right.
You know what I mean? That would probably be the only uncertain thing. Somebody in the chat, I'm part of me because I can't change it, but he said he could retire next year, as early as next year. You know what I mean? So we could be giving up depth for a 1-year rental. But yeah, I think that's the only thing. Like, how long is he going to continue to play? How long does he hold up? How long does he's already surpassed the timeline of Father Time where he should be tailoring off. He's already surpassed that. Does he do a Brady where he Tom Brady where he just seemingly never falls off until he retires?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I feel you. LeBron is still playing at a high level. Like we were saying earlier, I think that when I look at LeBron now, he gets eliminated from the Lakers. Oh, with the Lakers, they get eliminated. He's walking through the tunnel. He's laughing. He seems very, very carefree, right? Because he knows he's reaching the end of his career. He's about to retire. If he came to New York, I think we'd get a very focused LeBron because he knows the stakes. And maybe that's why he wouldn't even do it, right? But he knows the stakes at hand. He knows the stakes are high. He can't come to New York and, be laissez-faire with it. You know what I mean? He would have to come to New York focused and be ready to win and try to go out on top winning a championship in New York. I mean, that would be the ultimate way for him to retire. There's no doubt about that. You know what I mean? And maybe that's why he wouldn't do it. You muted.
My bad. I see a few people in the chat saying, LeBron got 2 to 3 years left. I'm not doubting that he does. But I don't know if he resigns, is what I'm saying. I don't know if he, I don't know and I don't know what number he resigns at. And then he could, if he stays healthy, he could play 5 years. My thing is he's getting older. So the probability, I think, of him, suffering an injury increases with age. And I also think it's been proven over the last couple of years that when he does get the minor injuries, you know what I mean, it's a longer recovery time for him than in years past because of his age. So those are the things I'm talking about. But yeah, if he stay healthy, he could play 5 more years.
Right. What do you think the chances are the Knicks make a move for Giannis?
I think they open, like I said, they holding on to Mitch. You know what I mean? They're holding on to OG. They got the pieces to go out and make the salary work. The only thing we don't have is the capital. But if he asks and he says it's New York or nothing, we can make it work. And I think they're prepared to do that if it opens up.
Yeah, I think they would definitely be prepared to do it if that were to open up. There's no doubt in my mind. They'd be prepared. They'd be ready to pounce. You know what I'm saying? They would be ready to pounce. Now, Nostalgic Nick said Giannis said he's staying. I hadn't seen that, but I'm not saying he didn't say that. And you know, knowing Giannis, he would say that anyway. You know what I mean? But there's no doubt in my mind the Knicks would pounce if Giannis was available. If Giannis did want to be moved, that they would pounce. But how the team is, I mean, listen, you know, the with Giannis, the Milwaukee Bucks haven't been great over the past few years. Largely due probably to Doc Rivers and personnel. Right. But with what the Knicks have now, looking at the Eastern Conference, they can win and probably are favored to, well, I don't want to say come out, but be a top 2 team in the Eastern Conference. You know what I mean? I do think moves to get a facilitator to bolster the defense can help the basketball team is currently constructed. You know what I mean? I hate to say it for people out there, but Ben Simmons fits the bill. You know what I'm saying? Ben Simmons fits the bill. Like it or not, ladies and gentlemen, he fits the bill. I'd make a play for him. I'd try to get him. I know y'all don't want to hear it. I know y'all don't like it. Some of y'all are for it. I'd make a move for him. You know what I mean? I just think that move can be the type that brings this offense together, links the players together. But we'll see. You know what I mean? We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. Overall, Tony, before we get out of here, you know, just what's your thoughts on the offseason so far? Before we wrap.
I mean, I'm still thinking it's a plus. It's a positive. I like the guys they brought in. I think it's definitely going to help our bench depth. I'm glad that, you know, the coaching search is over. You know what I mean? And we can start building and moving forward. You know, the only damper on the season was the manner in which Tips was let go, and you know, the length it took to really define the guy that they were looking for.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I'm happy it's time to move forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hopefully he's the guy. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully he's the guy. He you know, I know there's a lot of people saying, well, he's the second, third choice or whatever it is. Hopefully he's the guy. And he's able to get it done. Hopefully he's the right fit with the players, the right fit with the front office. You know, listen, the front office hasn't missed much. Let's say that. I will say that. They haven't missed much. You know what I mean? And they've been, they've made a lot of good decisions. So let's hope that this is the best one. Let's see. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate your time. We're gonna get up out of here. I'm sure I'll catch you tomorrow night. I do want to take a look at Summer League and look at the development of our young players. You know what I mean, folks? Up out of here. Be easy. If I don't see you tomorrow, have a great 4th. Well, it is the 4th of July. Have a great 4th. You know what I mean? We out. Peace.
This is NBK, nothing but Knicks. When Sim passed the assist, you know that it's #1 show that breaks down the game. If you can't play defense, stay out my way. Dribble the ball, come down the lane. 5 seconds on the shot clock, who gon' win us the game? You wanna hear Nick updates and trade rumors? Post-game reviews, this the place you tune in. So tell a friend just to keep the ball moving. Like the page if you feeling the movement. Every game we coming to win. Give us a sub like a player that came off the bench. This is NBK, nothing but Knicks.